Welcome back, everybody. So tonight I am making a garlic butter chicken bites with lemon asparagus. Sounds fancy, right? Well, we're gonna find out. It's got a lot of seasonings involved, which is a nice change from some previous recipes that we've done. So tonight I'm going to be skipping one of the steps that you'll see that they talk about blanching the asparagus. I'm not gonna do that because my asparagus are pretty small. They're a decent size. They aren't like the gigantic ones that I've gotten before from HEB. If you have larger asparagus, I definitely recommend that you go ahead and follow that blanching step. Super easy. It's just a matter of throwing them in boiling water for a couple minutes and then throwing them in some ice to stop them from cooking before you actually put them in the pan. So it basically helps your asparagus to cook a little bit faster and a little more evenly. That way it's not so crunchy still while it's finishing cooking with the chicken. But besides that, I'm not going to do that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to dice up our 3 chicken breasts. You can see I have some pretty good sized chicken breasts. We're going to put these into dices and then we're going to season them and put them over here in the bowl. And then once we do that, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so you can see I've got all my 3 chicken breasts all diced up into nice big chunks here. So now we're going to season this. It says to add salt, pepper, and onion powder. So we're just going to throw some. Now you can follow the measurements again if you would like. I'm going to actually take my rings off again because I'm going to mix all this through and through my hand. So I'm going to make sure I have plenty of salt on my chicken. Ooh, about time to refill my pepper grinder. Throw some pepper in here. Good thing about a pepper grinder is it's a nice little upper arm workout if you haven't done an upper arm workout today. Oh, Lord. If you just have regular pepper, totally fine. I don't know why I like the taste of fresh ground pepper better, but I do. Alright, now we're going to throw some onion powder in here. Again, you can follow the measurements on the recipe. Not going to hurt my feelings. I just almost never do that. I like to kind of go by what it looks like, what it smells like. Yep. We're just going to make sure we get seasonings all over this chicken. And then again, you can adjust this if you want to start out safe and just do the measurements, but maybe adjust a little later. Do that. Start with what you feel comfortable with. Mix it around. See what it looks like. Add a little bit. Throw in a different kind of seasoning if you want. I'm going to keep the seasoning on the chicken pretty basic. Alright, so you can kind of see here, you can see the black and you can see some of the seasoning on there. So I actually think these are pretty good. You can really smell the onion powder. If anything, I might throw a little pepper on here, but I may do that while they're cooking. Just that way I can kind of play with the seasoning as it's cooking. So we're going to do that, and we're going to let this sit in here. And then, so now I'm going to take my asparagus, and I'm going to basically just chop off all those white pieces. So I'm going to grab it from the bottom since I'm going to chop that off anyway. So you see right here on the line where it kind of starts turning this purpley and then it turns white. You don't want this part. This is gross. Or so I've been told, and I don't want to test that theory. So I'm basically going to chop off probably a good 3 inches off of the majority of these, but I'm going to chop all those down, and then once I have that down, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so now we're going to start cooking our chicken. So I've got a very large skillet over here that I've got on about medium high-ish heat. I've got it on about a 6 out of 10. So I'm going to let this preheat first. But in the meantime, I want to pour half of my butter in here. So it asks for half a cup. So it's set to soften it. I melted mine a little bit. So I'm just going to pour about half of what I've got in there. And then the recipe calls for a teaspoon of olive oil, but this says to do half. So I'm just going to hopefully eyeball this correctly and probably did closer to a teaspoon of olive oil, but it's oil. It's fine. So I want this to get nice and warm before we actually put our chicken in here. So I'm going to kind of just mix those around, let them spread out and really start warming up. Once this warms up, I'm going to start pouring my chicken in here. So you can do all of it at once if you would like. The recipe itself says to not crowd your pan, so I have a pretty large pan here. So I'm basically going to put as much as I can. I may split this into 2 cooking sessions for the pan, but I'll basically throw half of my chicken in here. You want to cook it until it's brown, and then you're going to do the other half as well. Okay, so also while you're doing your batches of chicken, you do have them seasoned already with your salt, pepper, and your onion powder. As they start cooking, and once they get to that point that they're a little bit more golden brown, you want to go ahead and add your teaspoon of Italian seasoning and your teaspoon of minced garlic. Now I've pulled, I believe, 5 or 6 cloves of garlic, so I'm just going to squeeze in 3 of those cloves into the chicken, let it cook for just a little bit. You just want it to get where it smells really good. When it gets beyond that point, your garlic gets a little bit gross. So just really pay attention to how it smells. So as soon as it starts smelling super fragrant and super garlicky, go ahead and take it out of the pan. When your batches are done, or if you're all going to do it all in one batch, just put it aside on a plate, and then we're going to work from that point. So I'm going to go ahead and pour my first batch of chicken in here. Let's see how much of this actually we can fit. I may be able to do this all in one. Yeah. Alright, so my pan's big enough that my chicken's not going to be crowded, so I'm just going to get this done in one nice foul swoop. I'm going to make sure I spread out all my pieces so they all have a chance to get some of this butter and some of the olive oil on it. So mix it around your pan. Make sure all your chicken gets nice and covered. And then spread it out so that way it can evenly start cooking. And like I said, once your chicken starts getting browned, you'll go ahead and add in that Italian seasoning and add in your minced garlic, and then we'll pick back up from there. Okay, so I've pulled my chicken. You can see it all sitting here on my nice little paper plate. I'm actually going to deglaze my pan with my chicken broth. So I'm going to deglaze that. I'm going to stir up any of the little flavor goodies that are on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and mince the rest of my garlic. So I only wound up putting 2 cloves in with my chicken. So I'm going to do 3 more in here. And if you want to use, again, the pre-minced garlic, please feel free. Man, these garlic cloves are serious. You get to watch me struggle. Aren't you excited? I want to make sure I kind of mix that around. I don't want my garlic to start burning all in one place. So between every clove, I'm just going to give it a quick little stir. Okay, so I've got my 3 other cloves of garlic in here. And you'll notice that you'll see me kind of scraping the center of my pan. That's because this pan I've had for a really long time. And in the middle, it tends to have a weird little hump in the middle of this pan. And I don't want my garlic getting up there and burning. Okay, so we're gonna let this simmer. Once everything actually starts simmering, which we're getting pretty close, we're gonna add the rest of our butter. We're gonna add some lemon juice, and we're gonna actually add some Cholula hot sauce, because apparently I don't have sriracha. And I thought I did, but that's fine. You can use whatever hot sauce that you prefer. If you want to throw in, I don't know, some other crazy stuff. Like we've got some of that crazy stuff. If you ever watch that show Hot Ones, oh my god. The bomb, or da bomb, horrible. You ever want to test somebody or trick somebody? Give them literally a toothpick. Not even kidding. It's so hot. But we're not doing that because I would actually like to eat my food. Alright, so I've got a nice little simmer going here. I'm going to go ahead and throw in the rest of my butter and stir that in. Now I've got my heat right now at kind of a right below medium. I think I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. The recipe actually calls for it to be at medium high. I don't want to do that with my garlic just because I'm always so paranoid about my garlic burning. Put a little bit of that lemon sauce in there. Lemon juice, lemon sauce. Lord. It's a Monday in my world right now, people. Sorry. Alright, and then we're going to do a teaspoon of the hot sauce. Now, this is one of my husband's favorites. I don't usually use this for anything, so we're gonna see how this goes. I'm only using a teaspoon though, so I think we'll be okay. Obviously you can adjust this. If you like it spicier, add it a teaspoon at a time. Kind of give it a try, see what you think. You can totally try this sauce at any point. I actually also tried my chicken when it was pretty much done cooking, right before I added my Italian seasoning and garlic, just to make sure that like my salt level was right. And I actually did pretty good on my seasoning this time. I didn't have to adjust anything on my chicken, which was nice. All right, so last thing we're gonna throw in here is just a little bit of parsley. Now this calls, I think, for fresh parsley. Again, I'm not a parsley person. I'll put it in here for the color, but that's about it. So I don't tend to keep fresh parsley on hand. It's easier for me to just keep the dried. But this then just, it adds a little bit of greenery, and you know, it's always nice to have your food be colorful. All right, and then we're gonna throw a little bit of crushed red pepper flakes in here. Again, adjust this to how hot you like something. We all know those red pepper flakes can add a definite punch to something, so if you are super sensitive to heat, leave out all the spicy stuff. It should not affect necessarily the underlying flavors. It just gives it that extra little kick. Alright, so we're gonna let this simmer for just a couple minutes. Alright, so our sauce is, smells really good. So we're gonna go ahead and throw in our asparagus. We basically want to let this asparagus cook for at least 2 or 3 minutes. You want it to get soft. So just make sure that you stir your asparagus around, get everything coated in this really nice, spicy, lemony sauce. I'm going to try and evenly spread everything out so that way it can all get a little bit of this heat and all get nice and cooked. We're going to let this sit, like I said, for a couple minutes until my asparagus starts getting like really soft, and it will start turning a super intense green. You can check it also with a fork, just to kind of poke one, see if it's soft enough for you. If you like them crunchy, leave them crunchy. I don't really care. I like softer asparagus, so I tend to cook mine a little bit longer. So we're going to let this cook. I'm going to stir it around every 30 seconds or so, but at least 2 to 3 minutes, I would say. Again, go to your liking, test it with a fork to the softness that you like, and then we'll pick back up. Okay, so I cooked my asparagus about 10 total minutes. I actually wound up adding a little more chicken broth as well, probably somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 cup, just because my pan started drying out a little bit and I didn't want to add my chicken back in yet. That still has all that like buttery goodness in it. So I went ahead and just added a little extra chicken broth, and I threw in a few more little sprinkles of the Cholula. So I'm going to taste my sauce here in a minute before I throw my chicken back in, but my asparagus is looking pretty much, like it's looking pretty soft, so I think we're pretty good there. So I'm going to take a little try. Well, I've got a little fork here. So I'm basically just going to kind of scrape it flat, blow it off, don't burn yourself. Oh. That's actually pretty good. I feel like it needs something. Oh, that is really good. Maybe it doesn't need anything. This sauce is really good. So, I'm going to go ahead and pour my chicken along with all that goodness that was in the bottom of it. It is going to obviously affect my sauce flavor a little bit. Hopefully not too much. But I'm basically just going to take this all now and start stirring it all together. Now she had where it was, hey, keep your asparagus on one side and put your chicken on the other. You can do that if you like. I want to make sure that like all of my flavors really start melding. So you'll notice that I'm kind of splish splashing here. It's because I'm trying to make sure I get everything really put in together. So we're just going to stir this around. I'm going to let it heat my chicken back up, even brown it a little bit more. So I basically cooked my chicken about 80% to where I wanted it, because I knew I'd be throwing it back in the pan, and I knew that it would wind up getting cooked a little bit more. Oh, I also added a little more lemon juice. Not too much more. I probably took it and just did like maybe a 5-second squirt. So I just wanted to add a little more lemon. I wanted that lemon flavor to really come through in my asparagus. So like I said, I'm going to let this simmer for a couple minutes, and then I'll adjust my seasonings as necessary. This thing says to add more crushed red pepper, to add more parsley, whatever else you want to add. Because I liked the flavor of the sauce before I threw all this back in so much, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to let it meld together for at least 3 or 4 minutes. So right now it's 6:15. So in about 3 minutes, I'm going to go back. I'm going to take a little piece of chicken. I'm going to roll it around in my sauce now as it is. I'm going to try it, and then I'll adjust my seasonings as necessary.